In this video, we're going to be covering lists in Python. Let's get right into the video. Alright, so before we get into any actual code, let's just go over what a list is. A list in Python is a type of data, or a data structure, that stores multiple values. So far, we've mostly covered data types that store a single piece of information. So this includes ints, strings, chars, bools, and all of those. Now, in this video, what we're going to cover is lists, and a list is something that stores more than one value. For example, if you have a shopping list and you have all of your different food on it, that's more than one value, and that's a list. So, let's make a list. How do you make a list? Well, it's the same as making any other variable except for the end part. So if we make a list and we'll call it nums, just like this, all of this is normal. But now what we do is we use square brackets. So these square brackets tell Python that we're making a list. So now we're making a list and we're assigning it to the nums variable. Alright, so what do we want to have in this list? Well, let's have some numbers, right? Because it's called nums. So maybe 45, 67, 3, 21, 9, and 10. Now notice how I'm using commas to separate every element in my list. By the way, each of these things is called an element. So yeah, we've just created a successful list, and we can do whatever we want with it. So let's just print this out and see what we get. Alright, so print nums, and let's run this. And here we get 45, 67, 3, 21, 9, and 10. So that's expected. We're just printing out the list. Now, what if we wanted to add something to the end of the list? Well, that's where we could use the method .append. .append simply adds an element to the end of the list. So if we go down here and we say nums.append, and we put our parentheses, in these parentheses we can pass what we want to append to nums. So we can do any number. For now, let's do something like 47. So what this is doing is it's taking nums and it's adding 47 to the end of it. Now if we run this again, we will get 47 at the end of our list. Now that's adding, but what if we wanted to remove the last element from the list? Well, that's where you could use the .pop method. So if we comment this out and write another line, we can say nums.pop, and we put the parentheses again, and we pass in what we want to pop from the list. If we leave this as empty, then it's just going to remove the last element of the list, but we can specify what index we want to pop at. For now, let's just leave it to see what's going to happen. So if we run this, we will get 45, 67, 3, 21, and 9. So we are removing 10, which is the last element in our list. And we can specify what we want to pop from the list. So we can say nums.pop 0. And what this is going to do is it's going to take the 0th element of the list, which is 45, and it's going to remove it from the list. So the way lists work in Python is that they start at the index 0. So here 45 would be 0, 67 would be 1, 3 would be 2, and so on. So that's why nums.pop 0 removes 45. I hope that makes sense. So now if we run this, we will get 45 removed, and we will get 67, 3, 21, etc. So here we're using indexes. What I want to do now is I want to print out the elements at specific indexes. So if we comment this, and we say print nums 0, this is going to print the 0th element in the list. Here we're using square brackets to tell the computer where we want to print out. So we put the square brackets and we specify the index. Here we're specifying that we want to print the 0th element again, which is 45. This could be anything, like 1 or 2 or 3, but let's just leave it at 0 and see what's going to happen. So here, if we run this, we have 45 and then we get our list. 45 is obviously the 0th element, so everything makes sense here. Now if we did print nums1, then this is going to print out 67 because it's the first element in the list. Even though it's technically not the first, it's at the index 1. So here we get 45 and 67. So everything's working as expected. Now what if we wanted to print out the last element of the list, which is 10? What if we wanted to print that out? Well, what if we said print nums6? Alright, so let's print out the 6th element in the list. Now this is going to return an error. If you can spot it, then that's great, but if you can't, here's what the error will be. The error will say that nums6 doesn't exist. And it actually doesn't exist. Here we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but there's no 6. So when we run this, we're going to get an error, and I'll demonstrate that here. As you can see, index error, list index out of range. So basically, 6 is out of the range of this list. This list only goes up to 5. So if we change this to 5, we're not going to get any errors. So you have to be careful when you're printing out a specific element from the list. Things like this could happen, and they might be a headache to try to solve. So be careful when you're accessing any index. So that's how indexes work, and I hope that's clear. So I'll comment this out. Now let's assign different values to different elements in our list. Let's start out with nums0. Let's say nums0 is equal to 56. Now when we run this code, we're going to get 56 instead of 45. Now if we print nums before this, then we will get 45, and then we change the value of nums0 to 56, and then we get 56. Now let's change some more things. Let's say nums1 is equal to 64. Alright? Nums1 is equal to 64. So firstly, we get our list here, and secondly, we get 56 instead of 45 and 64 instead of 67. Now the reason we can do this is because lists are mutable. What mutable means is that you can directly change the value of the variable. Here we're changing the value of elements in a list. In Python, you can do this easily, right? In Python, you can change the elements inside of a list, and it's just going to work fine. However, with other data types like strings and integers, this is not possible. Strings and integers are actually immutable. This means that when you change the value of a string or an integer, the value is not actually being changed. Python is actually creating a whole new variable and assigning that variable to that value. What this means is that those ints and strings are going to be kept in memory, so you're still using up an extra slot of memory. This is why mutable objects are better. I hope that makes sense. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through every num in our list, and I'm going to print it out. So let's comment out this part, and let's create a for loop. And we've done this in the previous episodes, but I just want to do it again here to demonstrate how it's done. So let's say for num in nums, and this is all review, print num. Alright, so now it's going to go through every single number, and it's going to print it out. So here we go, 45, 67, 3, 21, 9, and 10. Now this is one way to go through every num, but another way is actually to go through every index and get the index where each num is located. So what this means is, let's say 4, and now we make a variable, let's just call it I, in range len nums print I. So here we're creating a for loop, and we're saying for every variable I inside of the range of the length of nums, so this function len just returns the length of a list, which in our case is nums. So this is returning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So for I in range 6, essentially, print I. Here we're going to get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is because we haven't actually called the num list. So if we do that here, nums I. So now we're going to get this repeated twice. So we're going to have every number in our list of numbers printed twice. So if we hit Control B and run this, here we go. We get 45, 67, 3, 21, 9, 10. And then we get it again, 45, 67, 3, 21, 9, 10. So this is another way to do it. This can be more convenient in some cases, because if you want to access the index of wherever you are in the list, for any other case, maybe you want to change it, maybe you want to access something else with the index. If you're trying to do anything with the index, then this second option is better. But if you're doing a simple kind of loop and you just want to do this only, then iterating through the list like this is better. Alright, so another thing you can do with lists is that you can actually add them together. So if we make another list and we call it nums2, and we assign it the values something like 63, 12, 10, 5, right? This is our list, and we can actually add our nums list and our nums2 list together. So if we say print nums plus nums2, what it's going to output is it's going to output the list of nums plus the list of nums2. So if we hit Control B and run this, as you can see here, we get the list of nums up to 10, and we get the list of nums2 in its entirety. So we get 63, 12, 10, 5. So yeah, you can do all of these operators that you can do on other variables on lists too. It's pretty cool. Now, unlike a lot of other languages, Python lists can have multiple data types in them. Here we've just made a list that contains a bunch of numbers, but we can do whatever we want in our list. We can make a new list called, I guess, a sorted list, because the data types are assorted. And we assign it the value of this. We can say something like, we can make a string called lartex. We can make an integer, maybe 689. We can make a Boolean variable, true. We can make a character, so like C. And we can do whatever we want. We can make a float, like 45.6. So here I'm just demonstrating that there are a lot of different data types that you can use in a list. And if we print this out, we're not going to get any errors, because unlike other languages, Python lets you use multiple data types in your list. As you can see, we get all of our data types. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly go through lists in Python for today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed. If you liked the video, like it. If you didn't, dislike it. If you really liked the video and you want to see more tech and programming content related to this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on so that you never miss a new video. I hope to see you in the next video, but until then, this has been Lartech, signing out. Have a good day.